Hey there.
We're here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Let's play for 5 minutes while they're all on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
to you.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Bol Prabhu. Maha Mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Must be sunny in North Wales, eh?
I'm working actually. I went on too early. I went on an hour early. So sorry. I'm trying to lift the grass with the wind.
Okay. So we starting from where we left off last week. We were talking about devotional service, and we finished off chapter 25, where the first explanation of devotional service comes in, and you know, it says that by association we actually advance. Satam prasangam mama vira samvido. Ajantivitkana Rasayana, like that. And we finished off by saying, so, okay, it should be performed with intensity, Tivrena. So this is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Tivrena is like a light beam, very pointed, very focused. It means very strong. Tivrena Bhakti Yoga, and everybody should perform in that way. And then we just started to describe about 26 and 27 were about jnana mixed with bhakti. How to perform jnana yoga, and bhakti is like, jnana is primary and bhakti is secondary. And then we spoke about Ashtanga yoga last week. This week we was talking about Ashtanga yoga. That's right. So first thing in Jnana Yoga is fundamental principles of material nature. Because Jnana is all about understanding what is matter and what is spirit. So it starts off like that. And talks a bit about creation. And then 27, understanding material nature. And how to get liberation from it. And how the soul's covered by it. This is all Jnana. And the goal is liberation, or in the devotee's case, going back to Godhead. So now we're talking about Ashtanga Yoga. So we spoke about this 2 or 3 times, so we won't go into detail, but basically it starts talking about starts talking about, yama and niyama, things we should do and things we shouldn't do. Like we should chant 16 rounds in our case and follow 4 regulative principles, basically. So it mentions all these things for Ashtanga Yogi. And then, it starts by controlling the sitting. First you have to sit properly, asana, then pranayama, breathe properly, and then pratyahara, then we become detached from material things. Dharana also means similar thing, withdrawing the senses, and dharana means start to focus. Withdraw the senses from sense objects, then start to focus. And then dhyana, we can meditate on the object that we're trying to achieve. And then when we become fully focused on that object, in this case the super soul, then it's called samadhi. And then eventually from samadhi we can sampati, understanding our spiritual nature, who we are, how we're related to Krishna. But that's for those who get the mercy of a pure devotee, and we can eventually come to that point and take up devotional service. So 28, and then we, what we're focusing on then from text 23, from text 13 of chapter 28, it's actually describing the Lord's form, what the yogis meditate on. So we can start reading from that, I think. We're going to start from the bottom. We'll start with Maha Mantra. It's like a little, in the distance, isn't it? Like a little gnome in the distance there.
So could you just remind me of the chapter and verse again? Is it 28 or?
Chapter 28, text 13.
Text 13, okay. Right. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has a cheerful, lotus-like countenance with ruddy eyes like the interior of a lotus and a swarthy body like the petals of a blue lotus. He bears a conch, discus, and mace in 3 of his hands. His loins are covered by a shining cloth, yellowish like the filaments of a lotus. On his breast he bears the mark of Shivatsa, a curl of white hair. The brilliant Kostoba gem is suspended from his neck. He also wears around his neck a garland of attractive sylvan flowers, and a swarm of bees, intoxicated by its delicious fragrance, hums about the garland. He is further superbly adorned with a pearl necklace, a crown, and pairs of armlets, bracelets, and anklets. His loins and hips encircled by a girdle, he stands on the lotus of his devotee's heart. He is most charming to look at, and his serene aspect gladdens the eyes and souls of the devotees who behold him.
What are you reading the purport?
Sorry?
Are you reading? Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong chapter. Go on, carry on.
Okay, so, we're at text 17 now of 28. The Lord is eternally very beautiful, and he is worshipable by all the inhabitants of every planet. He is ever youthful and always eager to bestow his blessing upon his devotees. The glory of the Lord.
What are you on?
Text 18.
Okay.
Okay, so carry on.
When you finish that, just stop a minute.
Okay, so the glory of the Lord is always worth singing, for his glories enhance the glories of his devotees. One should therefore meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and upon his devotees. One should meditate on the eternal form of the Lord until the mind becomes fixed. That's it.
So this is called jhana. And then, this is a general description of the Lord, but then you start to meditate on his limbs. So you meditate on the general form of the Lord according to this, then now comes meditating on the limbs from 21 onwards, starting with the lotus feet. Carry on.
Okay. Thus always merged in devotional service, the yogi visualizes the Lord standing, moving, lying down, or sitting within him. For the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are always beautiful and attractive. In fixing his mind on the eternal form of the Lord, the yogi should not take a collective view of all his limbs, but should fix the mind on each individual limb of the Lord. The devotee should first concentrate his mind on the Lord's lotus feet, which are adorned with the marks of a thunderbolt, a goad, a banner, and a lotus. The splendor of their beautiful ruby nails resembles the orb of the moon and dispels the thick gloom of one's heart. The blessed Lord Shiva becomes all the more blessed by bearing on his head the holy waters of the Ganges, which has as its source in the water that washed the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord's lotus feet act like thunderbolts hurled to shatter the mountain of sin stored in the mind of the meditating devotee. One should therefore meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for a long time. The yogi should fix in his heart the activities of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who is worshipped by all demigods and is the mother of the Supreme Person, Brahma. She can always be found massaging the legs and thighs of the Transcendental Lord, very carefully serving him in this way. Next, the yogi should fix his mind in meditation on the personality of Godhead's thighs, the storehouse of all energy. The Lord's thighs are whitish blue, like the luster of the linseed flower, and appear most graceful when the Lord is carried on the shoulders of Garuda. Also, the yogi should contemplate his rounded hips, which are encircled by a girdle that rests on the exquisite yellow silk cloth that extends down to his ankles. The yogi should then...
Okay, somebody else can take over now for a bit. Yeah. Jai Krishna Prabhu.
The yogi should then meditate on his moon-like navel in the center of his abdomen. From his navel, which is the foundation of the entire universe, sprang the lotus stem containing all the different planetary systems. The lotus is the residence of Brahma, the first created being. In the same way, the yogi should concentrate his mind on the Lord's nipples, which resemble a pair of most exquisite emeralds, and which appear whitish because of the rays of the milk-white pearl necklace adorning his chest. The yogi should then meditate on the chest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the abode of Goddess Mahalakshmi. The Lord's chest is the source of all transcendental pleasure for the mind and full satisfaction for the eyes. The yogi should then imprint on his mind the neck of the Personality of Godhead, who is adored by the entire universe. The neck of the Lord serves to enhance the beauty of the Kaustuba gem, which hangs on his chest. The yogi.
We've got to remember that each of these limbs are interchangeable. You can actually do anything with one limb you can do with any other limb. It's like, he's omniscient, or should I say omnipotent. He's not a body like ours. But anyway, it is the same by appearance, but he's also, because it's omnipotent, he can do anything. Just like we see, on these cartoons, they seem to, like the genie suddenly disappears, or, Anyway, carry on.
The yogi should further meditate upon the Lord's four arms, which are the source of all the powers of the demigods who control the various functions of material nature. Then the yogi should concentrate on the polished ornaments which were burnished by Mount Mandara as it revolved. He should also duly contemplate the Lord's discus, the Sudarshan chakra, which contains 1,000 spokes and a dazzling luster, as well as the conch, which looks like a swan in his lotus-like palm. The yogi should meditate upon his club, which is named Kamodaki, and is very dear to him. This club smashes the demons, who are always inimical soldiers, and is smeared with their blood. One should also concentrate on a nice garland on the neck of the Lord, which is always surrounded by bumblebees, with their nice buzzing sound. And one should meditate upon the pearl necklace of the Lord on the Lord's neck, which is considered to represent the pure living entities who are always engaged in his service. The yogi should then meditate on the lotus-like countenance of the Lord, who presents his different forms in this world out of compassion for the anxious devotees. His nose is prominent, and his crystal clear cheeks are illuminated by the oscillation of his glittering alligator-shaped earrings. The yogi then meditates upon the beautiful face of the Lord, which is adorned with curly hair and decorated by lotus-like eyes and dancing eyebrows. A lotus surrounded by swarming bees and a pair of swimming fish would be put to shame by its elegance. The yogi should contemplate with full devotion the compassionate glances frequently cast by the Lord's eyes, for they soothe the most fearful threefold agonies of his devotees. His glances, accompanied by the loving smiles, are full of abundant grace. The yogi should similarly meditate on the most benevolent smile of Lord Sri Hari, a smile which, for all those who bow to him, dries away the ocean of tears caused by intense grief. The yogi should also meditate on the Lord's arched eyebrows, which are manifested by his internal potency, in order to charm the sex god for the good of the sages. With devotion,
if we meditate on the Lord's eyebrows, then we can actually overcome sex desire. Makara Dwaja, that's the name for the charming, that's the name of the sex god. The charming brow of personality of God protects the sages and devotees from being charmed by material lust and sex. Immunacharya, great Acharya, said that ever since he has been in the charming pastimes of the Lord, the charm of sex life had become abominable to him, and mere thought of sex enjoyment would cause him to spit and turn his face. So it's a little bit different from our process. When we're chanting, we have to listen to the holy name. And then it says that at some point we'll actually realize that the holy name is actually Krishna. We don't have to make an extenuous endeavour, but here. And then eventually we'll remember the Lord's pastimes. Not that we're trying to remember the Lord's pastimes and hear the holy name as well. And you will see the Lord's form, pastime, and paraphernalia like that. So, this is actually a Stanley yoga. And their process is to meditate on the form of the Lord. And according to what Prabhupada says, our purpose is to meditate on the Maha Mantra. And then we can actually get the same vision as the yogis in due course of time. Okay.
Shall I read some more?
We're saying, originally we're reading this Japa book, and they were saying that when he was a brahmachari in Tokyo, he'd only been in the movement a few years, and they were chanting his japa, and they were actually hearing the holy name for once. And he felt, really felt the power of the holy name. And he says, it's beyond description just by hearing the mantra. So that's what it means to hear the holy name, really, isn't it? We're hearing, but we're not hearing like that. But anyway, one day it'll happen. We've got to be aiming for one perfect mantra. And then, we can actually focus in on like that. Anyway, I'm not very, I don't have much realization in that field, but this is all theoretical. Okay, carry on.
Okay, with devotion steeped in love and affection, the yogi should meditate within the core of his heart upon the laughter of Lord Vishnu. The laughter of Vishnu is so captivating that it can be easily meditated upon. When the Supreme Lord is laughing, one can see his small teeth, which resemble jasmine buds, rendered rosy by the splendor of his lips. Once devoting his mind to this, the yogi should no longer desire to see anything else. By following this course, the yogi gradually develops pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. In the course of his progress in devotional service, the hairs on his body stand erect through excessive joy, and he is constantly bathed in a stream of tears occasioned by intense love. Gradually, even the mind, which he uses as a means to attract the Lord, as one attracts a fish to a hook, withdraws from material activity. When the mind is thus completely freed from all material contamination and detached from material objects, it is just like a flame of a lamp. At that time, the mind is actually dovetailed with that of the Supreme Lord and is experienced as one with him because it is free from the interactive flow of the material qualities. Thus situated in the highest transcendental stage, the mind ceases from all material reactions and becomes situated in its own glory, transcendental to all material conceptions of happiness and distress. At that time, the yogi realizes the truth of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He discovers that pleasure and pain, as well as their interactions, which he attributed to his own self, are actually due to the false ego, which is a product of ignorance.
Okay, just a minute. On to 36. So now we're talking about, when the yogi's been meditating like that, he comes to a liberated stage. If we've just been talking about the mind becomes liberated, just like, I gave that example a few weeks ago when I used to go on. My mother seemed to be liberated because she was absorbed in the telly, She was, actually, nothing else actually made any, So it's like that. You don't, when you become absorbed in something, then it's not like you're actually having to make an endeavour to detach your mind from anything else. It's just natural, isn't it? So at some point that will, higher taste, isn't it? Taste, higher taste. Anyway, carry on. All right, just a minute. He says here, note by Vishwanath Chakravarti mentions that an unfortunate yogi, in spite of developing love for the Lord, also withdraws his mind from his beautiful form because he is not fixed in that taste. Such a yogi is cheated of bhakti ras. The Lord gives such a yogi the realization of pratyat atma, or individual soul, but not liberation, the realization of paramatma. So it's difficult to understand how you've got love for the Lord, and yet, we're not fixed. Our mind deviates. So that means that there's different stages. That when you're completely in love, then there'll be nothing else permeating your mind. So, there are lower stages according to that. But the yogi's got love. So, devotees have got some love because, depending on their advancement, because we're actually choosing to serve Krishna instead of serve the material senses. So, that takes faith. It takes a bit of faith in the process, at least in the beginning. And we've got the faith to follow, the Lord's words in Shastra. And we're choosing to do that. So, if somebody follows your words, it's a sign of affection, a sign of they've got some faith in you. So that's also, so that's how love develops. So love of God, according to this, what Vishwanath Chakravarti is different intensities. And that's true in the material world, isn't it? Everything's a reflection of the spiritual world. Okay. Even in the spiritual world, they have different rasas, depending on the different intensity of the devotee. Where you got to 37? Yeah? So read to the end now, it's not far.
Because he has achieved his real identity, the perfectly realized soul has no conception of how the material body is moving or acting, just as an intoxicated person cannot understand whether or not he has clothing on his body. The body of such a liberated yogi, along with the senses, is taken charge of by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it functions until its destined activities are finished. The liberated devotee, being awake to his constitutional position and thus situated in samadhi, the highest perfectional stage of yoga, does not accept the byproduct of the material body as his own. Thus, he considers his bodily activities to be like the activities of a body in a dream. Because of great affection for family and wealth, one accepts a son and some money as his own, and due to affection for the material body, one thinks that it is his. But actually, as one can understand that his family and wealth are different from him, the liberated soul can understand that he and his body are not the same. Blazing fire is different from the flames, from the sparks, and from the smoke, although all are intimately connected because they are born from the same blazing wood. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Parabrahman, is the seer, who is different from the Jiva soul, or individual living entity, who is combined with the senses, the five elements, and consciousness. The yogi should see the same soul in all manifestations. All that exists is a manifestation of different energies of the Supreme. In this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. That is realization of the Supreme Soul. As fire is exhibited in different forms of wood, so, under different conditions of the modes of material nature, the pure spirit soul manifests itself in different bodies. Thus, the yogi can be in the self-realized position after conquering the insurmountable spell of Maya, who presents herself as both the cause and effect of this material manifestation, and is therefore very difficult to understand.
Yeah. So we just have to become expert at always engaging in devotional service, in other words. This is a philosophy. But if, if we have rapt attention for our service, then that's actually samadhi. And when we're always like that, so it doesn't need any extraneous endeavor, or any philosophical understanding. But it needs, intensity of service, or not necessarily, or intensity of service and purity of desire. We have the right desire. So that's why, devotional service is so simple. There's so many reasons that we shouldn't do that, and it's all what's it based on? It's based on it's based on the effects of the external energy. Yeah, that's all right in Bhagavatam, but what about this situation? We might say. But why are we thinking like that? Why are we disturbed? Because we're caught up with a false ego. There's nothing to stop us rendering service to Krishna. We just have to practice. Practice giving up grumbling. Or what comes before grumbling, being caught up in the situation, That's the only thing that's stopping us from serving Krishna. And, that's a platform of peace. When nothing bothers you, And that comes from realizing that there's nothing in this world really of any value. Two people are arguing and you're a witness to it. And you've nothing to do with the argument. You think, well, why are they arguing? It's like a pair of kids, But then you start listening to the argument and then you start taking sides. And you start feeling the emotions of the argument. It's like that, isn't it? We get caught. This is how we get caught up in material activities. But if we're not actually caught up in those activities and we're somewhere else, then it's not a problem. And that somewhere else is actually absorption in Krishna's service. Okay, so we can go on to the next chapter, chapter 29. Explanation of devotional service by Lord Kapila. So, there's a link between what we've just been reading and now. What is that link? So she's heard about, in 26 and 27 chapters, about Jnana or Sankhya, and we just heard in 28 about yoga. And she wants to hear more about bhakti and the different types of bhakti. That's not the original question. What's the most expedient way of working in this world? Bhakti. And we've heard about, Ashtanga yoga mixed with bhakti and Jnana yoga mixed with bhakti. So she's saying, now, I want to hear more about bhakti. So that's explained in 29. And first, she asks us three questions. Explain in detail the path of bhakti, which is the root cause of the knowledge of Sankhya and the ultimate end of all philosophical systems. Describe about the nature of time, whose sphere the people perform pious activities. Describe the continual process of birth and death of the jivas, in which one becomes detached. So we'll hear about that later in the chapters after this. 31 onwards, 30 and 31 onwards. And then she glorifies Kapila. So then Lord Kapila starts to respond. So in text, in 25:32, we spoke about pure bhakti, and now he's going to talk about mixed bhakti. Bhakti in ignorance, or bhakti contaminated by the mode of ignorance. Bhakti cannot be contaminated, but our understanding, our mind can become contaminated, and our ability to, our endeavor to perform it can be influenced by that. So they call it bhakti influenced by ignorance. What's bhakti in his ignorance? Envy, violence, pride, anger. Bhakti in passion, and desires from fruitive activity, fame, opulence. In goodness, desire to free himself from karma, offers results to the Lord and worships the Lord out of duty. So I think everybody will be affected by, when I read these, I thought, well, I'm in all three modes. You know what I mean? I'm affected by all the three. Okay, so then bhakti doesn't become tamasic. It's verifying what I've just said. Rajasic or sattvic, but the performer of bhakti does with such qualities. Now we're going about characteristics of pure bhakti beyond the modes. It means the service is unadulterated by material desires. And, when we hear about the qualities of Krishna, we actually, it's just like we want to hear more, like just like the rivers flow to the sea, there's no obstruction. Okay, so it says then, it talks about in verse 13 that devotees don't accept material benedictions, nor do they accept spiritual benedictions. So what's a spiritual benediction? That's the 5 or 4 types of liberation. Salokya, living on the same planet. Sarshti, having the same opulence. Samipya, same bodily features. Or same, to become associate of the Lord. And Sarupya, to have the same form of the Lord. Okay. And if we just carry on hearing, then automatically we'll actually lose all material and spiritual desires. So we can read from 15 onwards. Who's next? It's, I'm seeing him actually. Is it? No, it's not.
I can if you want me to. I've got one book with me.
Well, we're going to go in order. It's Karshana first, then Narada, and then you. Is that okay?
$15, yeah?
Yeah.
A devotee must execute his prescribed duties, which are glorious, without material profit. Without excessive violence, one should regularly perform one's devotional activities. The devotee should regularly see my statues in the
What do you
temple.
mean without excessive violence? You know what I mean? We can, without excessive violence. You can just hit somebody once. No, it means that living in the material world, you're going to perform violence because we've got a material body and we'll be committing violence to some other living entity just by our existence. When we breathe, we kill living entities. When we walk, we kill living entities. So it means that there is some level of violence that we can't help, but we shouldn't go beyond that. We should limit it.
But that won't apply to so many people.
Eh?
That won't. It won't. I mean, most of us won't be committing violence because it's not our, you know, our what we should be doing in this life, our natural state. Because it's using the example of Arjuna, isn't it, Lord?
Yeah, I mean, he's a Kshatriya.
Yeah.
Duty is to fight. So it's not, if it's actually according to religious principles, that's coming from Krishna, so that's okay. So, you know, according to our particular Varnashram duties, it's going to affect us in different ways. But the principle is that we don't unnecessarily commit violence to others beyond what we need to exist in this world.
Yeah.
Carry on.
The devotee should regularly see my statues in the temple, touch my lotus feet, and offer worshipable paraphernalia and prayer. He should see in the spirit of renunciation from the mode of goodness and see every living entity as spiritual. The pure devotee should execute devotional service by giving the greatest respect to the spiritual master and the acharyas. He should be compassionate to the poor and make friendship with persons who are his equals, but all his activities should be executed under regulation and with control of the senses. A devotee should always try to hear about spiritual matters and should always utilize his time in chanting the holy name of the Lord. His behavior should always be straightforward and simple. And although he is not envious but friendly to everyone, he should avoid the company of persons who are not spiritually advanced. When one is fully qualified with all these transcendental attributes and his consciousness is thus completely purified, he is immediately attracted simply by hearing my name or hearing of my transcendental quality.
So we've just been here about Madhyamadikari. Those qualities in 17 and 18 are the qualities of a Madhyamadikari. Respecting the spiritual master and the acharyas, showing compassion to the unfortunate, being friendly and equal to everybody, executing all activities with regulation and sense control, hearing about the spiritual matters, chanting the Lord's holy name, being straightforward in behavior, associating with saintly persons, giving up false ego. Okay.
As a chariot of air carries an aroma from its source and immediately catches the scent of smell, similarly, one who constantly engages in devotional service in Krishna consciousness can catch the Supreme Soul, who is equally present everywhere. I am present in every living entity as the Super Soul. If someone neglects or disregards the Super Soul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation.
So now we'll hear that, don't be shocked by what you hear next. This is Lord Kapila, laying down the line, the law, but he's doing it out of affection. Is according to benefit and teach his devotees who don't respect all beings. He's not doing it to actually, when we feel angry with somebody, we want to, hang, drawn and quarter them, and then we're satisfied. But, Krishna's not like that. Lord Kapila's doing this to make his devotees aware of what they should do. So carry on.
One who worships the deity of Godhead in the temple but does not know that the Supreme Lord as Paramatma is situated in every living entity's heart must be in ignorance and is compared to one who offers oblations into ashes.
What verse are you on?
Just about to read 23.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, one who offers me respect but is envious of the bodies of others and is therefore a separatist never attains peace of mind because of his inimical behavior towards other living entities. My dear mother, even if he worships with the proper rituals and paraphernalia, a person who is ignorant of my presence in all living entities never pleases me by the worship of my deities in the temple. Performing his prescribed duties, one should worship the deity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead until one realizes my presence in his own heart and in the hearts of other living entities as well. As the blazing fire of death, I cause great fear to whoever makes the least discrimination between himself and other living entities because of a differential outlook. Therefore, through charitable gifts and attention, as well as through friendly behavior and by viewing all to be alike, one should propitiate me who abide in all creatures as their very self.
Okay.
Living entity.
In other words, to avoid these misunderstandings, we have to remember Krishna is in the heart of everybody, and so therefore we respect them for that reason. They made us so many things, but it's not that we necessarily make friends with them if they're actually, violent people or anything like that. But we should at least respect what to speak of devotees. Even if devotees wind us up, we may think it's them that's winding us up. But actually what's happening is we're just getting, we've wound somebody else up. And now, we're getting wound up. And that person is just, the instrument to do that. And if we can think like that, it's not easy, then we can actually be peaceful. And it makes us humble. Just realise that, we are actually at fault. Although externally it may not appear that way. It may even that in that situation we're not at fault, but we're getting the resultant reaction for some fault, so that a devotee can remain humble in that situation. But that requires getting rid of the false ego. It don't matter what happens to us in this body, we're not the body. And nobody will remember it. Everybody will, at some point, will forget all about the situation. We probably remember it more than anybody. Every action is going to be forgotten forever. But if we don't forget it, we carry on forever, in the same mindset. Okay. So now we're going on to equal vision. Left discrimination. It's not that we actually embrace a tiger. We have discrimination, but we have that respect. Then the next section, 28-34, talks about gradations of living entities. So we can read that as well. Mataji, read.
Yep.
28. Living entities are superior to inanimate objects, O Blessed Mother, and among them living entities who display life symptoms are better. Animals with developed consciousness are better than them, and better still are those who have developed sense perception. Among the living entities who have developed sense perception, those who have developed the sense of taste are better than those who have developed only the sense of touch. Better than them are those who have developed the sense of smell, and better still are those who have developed the sense of hearing. Better than those living entities who can perceive sound are those who can distinguish between one form and another. Better than them are those who have developed upper and lower sets of teeth, and better still are those who have many legs. Better than them are the quadrupeds, and better still are the human beings. Among human beings, the society which is divided according to quality and work is best, and in that society the intelligent men, who are designated as Brahmanas, are best. Among the Brahmanas, one who has studied the Vedas is the best, and among the Brahmanas who have studied the Vedas, one who knows the actual purport of Veda is the best. Better than the Brahmana who knows the purpose of the Vedas is he who can dissipate all doubts, and better than him is one who strictly follows the Brahminical principles. Better than him is one who is liberated from all material contamination, and better than him is a pure devotee who executes devotional service without expectation of reward.
Okay.
Therefore,
Yeah.
I don't know where we're stopping, because you said 34.
33.
No, but Maharaj said from 28 to 34. It's talking about.
Just go to 36. Go two more.
To 36.
Yeah.
Therefore, I do not find it, because I'm on 33.
Anyway, just carry on until you get to 36.
Therefore, I do not find a greater person than he who has no interest outside of mine, and who therefore engages and dedicates all his activities and all his life, everything, unto me without cessation. Such a perfect devotee offers respect to every living entity because he is under the firm conviction that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has entered the body of every living entity as the Supersoul or controller. My dear mother or daughter of Manu, a devotee who applies the science of devotional service and mystic yoga in this way can achieve the abode of the Supreme Person simply by their devotional service.
Okay. Now we're going to, from 37 to 45, we're going to talk about the time factor. Okay, so who's next? It's, I'm seeing him, that is he. Can you read?
36, shall I read?
No, 37 says.
Okay. The time factor who causes, I don't know whether you're going to hear me very well, so I'll try my best. The time factor who causes the transformation of the various material manifestations is another feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who does not know that time is the same Supreme Personality is afraid of the time factor. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, is the time factor and the master of all masters. He enters everyone's heart. He is the support of everyone, and he causes every being to be annihilated by another.
These
No
are
one.
characteristics of time.
Sorry?
These are the characteristics of time.
Oh. No one is dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, nor is anyone his enemy or friend, but he gives inspiration to those who have not forgotten him and destroys those who have. Out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the wind blows. Out of fear of him, the sun shines. Out of fear of him, the rain pours forth showers. And out of fear of him, the host of heavenly bodies shed their luster. Shed their luster. Out of fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the trees, creepers, herbs, and seasonal plants and flowers blossom and fructify, each in its own season. Out of the fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the rivers flow, and the ocean never overflows. Out of fear of him, only does fire burn, and does the earth with its mountains not sink in the water of the universe. Subject to the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sky allows outer space to accommodate all the various planets, which hold innumerable living entities. The total universal body expands with its 7 coverings under his supreme control. Out of the fear of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the directing demigod in charge of the mode of material nature carry out the functions of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Everything animate and inanimate within this material world is under their control. The eternal time factor has no beginning and no end. It is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the maker of the criminal world. It brings about the end of the phenomenal world. It carries on the work of creation by bringing one individual into existence from another. And likewise, it dissolves the universe by destroying even the Lord of Death, Yamaraj. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So the time factor is making everything work. So if we don't see the time factor as Krishna, we'll become fearful. If we see Krishna in the time factor, then we can realize that, Krishna's controlling everything. And for a devotee, that's good. For a non-devotee, it's actually fearful. Okay, so we can start 30. Who was next in reading? Bhakti Mataji.
Chapter 30. Descriptions by Lord Kapil of adverse fruitive activities. The personality of...
So we've spoken about pure bhakti, bhakti mixed with the gunas, or the 3 modes of nature, bhakti mixed with gyan, and bhakti mixed with yoga. Okay. So this is answering question 7, which we're asking in the last chapter, about the birth and death of all living entities by describing, the results of their activities according to nature, and how one begins life and starts to go through life experiencing all these pains and pleasures. So according to adverse fruitive activities. Okay.
The personality of Godhead said, as a mass of clouds does not know the powerful influence of the wind, a person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of the time factor by which he is being carried. Whatever is produced by the materialist with great pain and labor for so-called happiness, the Supreme Personality as the time factor destroys, and for this reason the conditioned soul laments. The misguided materialist does not know that his very body is impermanent, and that the attractions of home, land, and wealth, which are in relationship to that body, are also temporary. Out of ignorance only he thinks that everything is permanent. The living entity, in whatever species of life he appears, finds a particular type of satisfaction in the species, and he is never averse to being situated in such a condition. The conditioned living entity is satisfied in his own particular species of life, while deluded by the covering influence of the illusory energy. He feels little inclined to cast off his body, even when in hell, for he takes delight in hellish enjoyment. Such satisfaction with one's standard of living is due to deep-rooted attraction for body, wife, home, children, animals, wealth, and friends. In such association, the conditioned soul thinks himself quite perfect. Although he is always burning with anxiety, such a fool always performs all kinds of mischievous activities with a hope which is never to be fulfilled, in order to maintain his so-called family and society. He gives heart and senses to a woman who falsely charms him with Maya. He enjoys solitary embraces and talking with her, and he is enchanted by the sweet words of the small children. The attached householder remains in his family life, which is full of diplomacy and politics, always spreading miseries and controlled by acts of sense gratification. He acts just to counteract the reactions of all his miseries, and if he can successfully counteract such miseries, he thinks that he is happy. He secures money by committing violence here and there, and although he employs it in the service of his family, he himself eats only a little portion of the food thus purchased, and he goes to hell for those for whom he earned the money in such an irregular way. When he suffers reverses in his occupation, he tries again and again to improve himself. Just when he is baffled in all attempts and is ruined, he accepts money from others because of excessive greed. Thus, the unfortunate man, unsuccessful in maintaining his family members, is bereft of all beauty. He always thinks of his failure, grieving very deeply. Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before, even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to their old and worn-out oxen. The foolish family man does not become averse to family life, although he is maintained by those whom he once maintained. Deformed by the influence of old age, he prepares himself to meet ultimate death. Thus, he remains at home just like a pet dog and eats whatever is so negligently given to him. Afflicted with many illnesses, such as dyspepsia and loss of appetite, he eats only very small morsels of food, and he becomes an invalid who cannot work anymore. In that diseased condition, one's eyes bulge due to the pressure of air from within, and his glands become congested with mucus. He has difficulty breathing, and upon exhaling and inhaling, he produces a sound like grr, grr, a rattling within the throat. In this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives, and although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can because he is under the control of time. Thus, the man who engaged with uncontrolled senses in maintaining a family dies in great grief. Seeing his relatives crying, he dies most pathetically, in great pain and without consciousness. At death, he sees the messengers of the Lord of Death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear he passes stool and urine. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamdutas, who bind him by the neck with strong ropes and cover his subtle body.
Okay. I think we'll leave the rest for next week.
Thank you.
So, you know, we've just done the life of a person who's in material consciousness. It's like, it's not very something to look forward to, is it? You know what I mean? They just always think that they can overcome these difficulties somehow or other, and so they keep going. But then at the final stages, he just realizes it's all been a waste of time. But that's not the end, as we'll read next week. Then he actually suffers afterwards, the result of all his activities. So it's a cruel world, isn't it? Very cruel world. And so we have to set up a society which gives people hope, you know, show them a different way of life. Yeah, we look after the old ones. Well, we look after the young and old, actually. But we've got I don't know whether it's a new guest, SRD. Welcome, anyway.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's me, Sumadura. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Sorry, we didn't have time to give you a read. Anyway, maybe next week if you join.
Okay.
Okay, so we can stop for that week. For this week, I mean. And then we'll start with the Yamadutas next week. Anything else before we wrap up? Thank you for coming in, Dave Byron.
Thank you, Byron.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Have a good week. I'll see you. Anybody who's joining us on, when is it? Sunday, isn't it? Sunday is the Practice Shastri. There's probably about 4 maybe 5 weeks left. And then hopefully we'll get everything done and we can just finish the course. And then Monday is Balaram's appearance day. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna. Thank you.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.